Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. A Toronto police officer was rushed to hospital with serious injuries after being shot during an investigation near Yonge and Eglinton early this evening. 3 people have been arrested, including the suspected shooter, who was taken into custody late tonight. Dale Manukduk joins us live from Yonge and Eglinton, where the SIU has taken over the case. And Dale, thankfully, the officer is expected to be okay. What more can you tell us from the scene?
Yeah, Kelda, I'm on Redpath Avenue where Toronto police are still holding this scene. As you can see behind me, this entire driveway stretching to Lillian Street is taped off. As you mentioned, all 3 suspects have been arrested. The last coming just after 10 o'clock is the suspected shooter. Now, this all went down during the evening commute home, people coming home to an exchange of gunfire. Toronto Police's Major Crimes Unit was investigating a robbery in the area of Yonge and Eglinton around 5:30 and stopped a vehicle.
Shortly after that encounter, one of our officers was shot, and at least one member of the service discharged their firearm.
Residents in the area describe a chaotic scene.
I just saw a cop drive straight up from Redpath and jumped out of his vehicle into the laneway. I saw him run straight in. I guess couldn't catch the guy, so he ran back out, threw his hands up in frustration.
3 people have been arrested, including the suspected shooter. Our cameras caught officers escorting one of the suspects into custody.
You're charged with conspiracy to commit an indictable offense.
As for the officer shot, he's 29 years old with 5.5 years of service on the force.
That our officer is doing well. He was shot in the abdomen and is here in a hospital surrounded by colleagues and family, being supported during what is obviously a difficult and challenging time. But I'm relieved to say that he's doing well and the injuries are not life-threatening.
This marks the 637th time an officer has been injured in Toronto this year.
This is the 2nd police officer that's been shot in about 10 weeks here in Toronto. This is unprecedented as far as what's going on in the city, and we need it to stop.
Mayor Olivia Chow posting to social media, frontline officers put themselves in harm's way every day, and every officer deserves to go home safe. City councillors were also on scene to show their support.
Extremely frightening. You can imagine the trauma the family's going through and all officers are going through. They see one of their fellow officers go down.
This is not something that we are used to. This is not something that we are accustomed to. And my message to the community is not only allow for, but let's support the police to complete their investigation.
And Kelda, as you mentioned, the province's Special Investigations Unit has invoked its mandate. It investigates any time somebody is injured or killed in the presence of police, or if an officer discharges their firearm. So that is the focus of this SIU investigation. They say that no one was injured by the officer's firearm discharge. We'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Dale. Our Dale Manukduk live at Yonge and Eglinton tonight. Now, also during the evening rush in Etobicoke, a woman and 3 children were rushed to hospital after they were struck by a vehicle. Police say the collision happened on Islington Avenue near Dundas Street West shortly after 6 and involved a family of 5. A woman in her 40s is in critical condition, and 3 children, one of them a baby, suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The children involved are 4 years old, 1 year old, and 1 month old. Police say the 76-year-old female driver remained at the scene. Now, the area is expected to remain closed for the next few hours for the investigation. And you can expect to see an increased police presence throughout the city in the coming days. The extra security coming ahead of October 7th, which marks 1 year since the Hamas attack on Israel that triggered the ongoing war in Gaza. The city's police chief announced today there will be multiple command posts in Jewish neighborhoods and near religious institutions. Ali Chiasson has the details.
We know world events always have an impact here at home.
5 days out from the 1-year anniversary of the Hamas attack in Israel, and local police forces are ramping up their presence, from plainclothes officers to cruisers on patrol, and
3 mobile command posts will be stationed in Jewish neighborhoods. A 4th mobile command post will be deployed to various mosques across the city.
Police in York Region are doing the same.
Our job as a police service is to make sure anything that bubbles up is lawful, is safe and peaceful.
For many, this feels like a new normal.
Close to my office, there is a synagogue that is neighbors with a mosque. And these two institutions have been best friends for decades. They do joint charitable endeavors together. They do joint ceremonies together. They've been very, very close. And it's disheartening to see that on Friday nights, the police is at the mosque, and on Saturdays, the police is at the synagogue.
Joel Etienne, the co-president of a Thornhill synagogue, says it's a sad thing to get used to.
Everybody's scared of that dangerous person, that lone wolf that could show up and make a mess for everyone, make horrors and mess for everyone. And that's just really quite unfortunate. But it's our new world.
The rise of hate overall has been large and stark for the last year.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims says the increased security presence is warranted as the conflict overseas surges.
This is a very emotional time for a lot of community members. It's an emotional time for everyone. And the last thing that we need is more hate on our streets.
Today, Premier Ford and Mayor Olivia Chow were in agreement on doing what they can to ensure everyone feels safe as they prepare for the gatherings or protests in the coming days.
People would be out gathering to express their emotions. We live in a democratic society, but hate has no place in our society either. So there will be police presence as people gather to mark October 7th.
You know, we want everything to settle down.
So people can reflect, mourn, advocate for peace, in peace, here. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The hockey season is just getting underway, and already there have been a couple of unsettling incidents at youth games. Now, one kids' league in Ontario is now investigating after a brawl that didn't involve the players, but rather the parents. Jamie Strachan has the story.
On the ice, a hockey game between 7 and 8-year-olds. Off the ice, a brawl involving parents and at least one coach. The game is stopped, players sent to their benches. It happened at this Ontario arena, a season-opening tournament for the Clever League, which has attracted some of the best young players in the province.
I think the first thing is to make sure the kids aren't impacted. They'll do what they have to do with anyone who is aggressor, like whoever started the fights. I think, they have no place to being there.
The league refused requests for an on-camera interview, but in a statement to CBC News, it says the KSL intends to take appropriate action and has taken interim steps, including suspensions, adding violent or aggressive behavior won't be tolerated.
I think anytime behavior like that happens in front of young people is just simply not acceptable, whether it's our league or anywhere else.
Scott Oakman runs the GTHL, the largest youth hockey league in the world. With thousands of games played every year, 6 parents were banned last season for bad behavior. The latest also from this weekend, parents brawling at this youth AAA game in Toronto. He says he usually deals with at least one case of misbehaving parents every week.
We're going to get to the bottom of who was involved and hold them accountable. Unfortunately, these types of instances cast an image of all hockey, which really isn't the case, and all parents are kind of tainted with that image.
These are isolated incidents, outliers among mostly positive experiences, but experts say a product of an increasingly competitive culture surrounding elite youth sports.
We pay an awful lot of money to have our kids involved in sport. Sometimes parents feel completely entitled. So we've got a lot of parents these days that are overstepping.
Some are using what happened as a lesson.
I actually mentioned it to him as like a learning point. So there's nothing wrong with looking at what the mistakes adults are making and learning from it.
A chance to take something good away from this ugly incident. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
If you live along Finch Avenue West, you may have noticed the incoming LRT line is nearly ready to get trains rolling. But legal troubles could make this the latest transit project in the city to face hurdles in reaching an opening date. Clara Pasica has this story.
The Finch West LRT was looking like it was the transit project on track to finish soon, with the Ontario government announcing all stations and stops were completed last month. But legal troubles in the last mile of this project could now slow things down. Mosaic, the consortium of companies building the line, have filed an application at the province's superior courts. They say Metrolinx and the province have breached the contract because they have not properly contracted the TTC, who will be operating the line, to fulfill its obligations that are needed for the line to open. In a court document, Mosaic now says this is contributing to growing dysfunction and ballooning costs. But Metrolinx had a message for the consortium. Our message to Mosaic is clear. Get out of court and back to work. We are working closely with Mosaic to get passengers on the Finch West LRT at the soonest possible date. Going on to say, Mosaic's recent loss of 6 weeks of schedule due to poor work planning and poor project management is unacceptable. With the Finch LRT facing new potential hurdles, the Premier was asked today if he'd be stepping in.
They need to sit down and make sure they get this resolved as quickly as possible. Need be, and I don't like doing it, at the last resort, we will get involved. I want to make sure that the companies that did the work and employees, they get paid. But I also have to respect the taxpayers' money to make sure that it was done properly too. So I just encouraging both sides to sit down and work their differences out. We got to get moving on this.
The official opposition says another legal battle over a provincial transit project was inevitable.
What we continue to see with these public-private partnerships is, again, lawsuits, delays, ballooning budgets. And that was, when governments, Conservative and Liberal, have introduced P3 projects like this, they always claim it's so that we can avoid these things, right? But actually, we always somehow end up in the same situation again and again.
The much-delayed Eglinton Crosstown has faced similar troubles, with the builders of that project suing Metrolinx last year. The Premier hopes both Finch and Eglinton can open soon.
Are we going to hit the next few months? Hopefully we will. If not, it will be in the new year. But my number one concern is we do not want an Ottawa disaster. We push something along and it keeps breaking down. We want to make sure it's safe.
No resolution to Metrolinx legal troubles could mean TTC riders are left to wait.
Well, the risk is that the line simply doesn't open, that it's caught up in a court case that drags on for months or years. And what will happen is residents will see this very expensive empty transit line going through a neighborhood that desperately needs rapid transit, that has been dealing with years and years of construction disruption.
For now, transit riders on Finch and Eglinton are left taking the bus. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
We're getting an idea of how progress on construction of the Ontario line is going. Today, all 3 levels of government confirming work is underway across every part of the 15.6-kilometer stretch of subway. Now, the work includes building new bridges that will carry the transit line across the Don Valley. The Ontario line will exit through an underground tunnel on the east side of the Don Valley, south of the Leaside Bridge. The province says additional construction along the Don will connect to elevated guideways, which they add will cut transit times in half. Toronto is getting an early start on its 2025 budget. Mayor Olivia Chow says she's launching budget consultations months ahead of schedule. Let's bring in Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords to break down all the details. And Sean, let's start with the elephant in the room. City Council hiked property taxes by 9.5% last year. Now, that was a rate we haven't seen in more than 25 years. Are our property taxes going up like that again this year?
Well, Kelda, that is the question, and unfortunately, we don't have the answer just yet. We did ask Mayor Olivia Chow what that property tax rate increase will look like in 2025. She can't say. And in fairness, she doesn't know because the process needs to play itself out over the next number of months. So, a lot of work has to be done between now and then to establish that tax rate. What I can tell you, though, is that projections that were provided by city staff last January suggest that it could be in the range of about a 7% property tax increase to address a $1.4 billion shortfall. So that's a deficit that the city has to deal with. Raising taxes is part of dealing with that, as they did last year. Here's Mayor Olivia Chow talking about that work that still needs to be done and the property tax rate.
We want to hear from folks where things are at, because we know that in 2025 the economy is not in the best shape. So people are facing higher mortgage costs, the rent is high.
And Sean, there is some good news out of City Hall when it comes to Toronto's books. Tell us more about that.
So that's right. We did get a bit of good news here in terms of the city's troubled financial situation. This year, they have actually, to this point in the year, posted a surplus, so $240 million, They anticipate, city staff do that is, that it's going to come down to about $140 million by the end of the year, largely attributing it to an uptick in TTC ridership, so more money coming in at the fare box. And this is good news for the budget more broadly, because what it does is it pushes up budget assumptions. It means that budget numbers are a little bit higher, revenues are higher, so that budget gap, that deficit is going to be lower, or at least it could be lower. So here's Stephen Conforti. He is the city's chief financial officer, talking about the work ahead and trying to establish, that a plan of attack to address that deficit.
I can frankly say last year's budget was likely the most challenging budget I've had in 18 years of budgeting. We opened with a very significant budget pressure that was a result of really coming out of the pandemic with the sustained impacts on transit, shelter costs, and a series of other costs. We put in motion steps that were designed to be able to address that challenge over multiple years. So it doesn't get overly easier, but I don't expect it to be as challenging. But still not quite easy. Every budget's always going to have its own challenges.
And Sean, as mentioned, the mayor is launching this whole process early. Walk us through the timeline here. When will we know that proposed property tax rate, and when will it all be finalized?
Okay, Keldar, you ready for the rundown? Here is this long process. So it's launching early, as you said. We're going to have budget consultations starting on October 19th. They'll wrap up at the end of the month. City staff will take that information away, and they will work on it for the next bunch of months, really, and they'll launch their proposed budget in early January. Now, that's when we'll really get a good sense of the proposed property tax hike, any cuts, or any additional spending in that budget. Then from there, you've got budget consultations at City Hall and across the city, another chance to weigh in effectively. And the mayor will be watching this whole time. She'll take all of this into account when she launches her budget. Now that's a more streamlined version of the budget, which paves the way for it to be finalized by City Council in February. So that's when we'll get the final budget and that final property tax increase that everybody's going to be watching for. So obviously lots of work to come and lots of things to watch in the next number of months.
And really appreciate that rundown. Thanks so much, Sean. Our Municipal Affairs reporter, Sean Jeffords at City Hall. Blue Jays fans who were hoping for some front office changes ahead of next season may be disappointed today. After the team's worst season in more than 5 years, team president Mark Shapiro says GM Ross Atkins will stay on. Greg Ross has more from the Jays' season-ending press conference.
The Blue Jays as an organization have a lot of work to do.
Blue Jays president and CEO Mark Shapiro made no bones about it.
This past season was a bitter disappointment.
The Jays finished dead last in the American League East Division with just 74 wins this year, 15 fewer than they had just a season before.
As a leader of the organization, the accountability and the responsibility for that clearly rests with me.
Deep center. After making it to the postseason in each of the previous 2 years, this was definitely a step back for the organization. It had many questioning the future of GM Ross Atkins. Today, Shapiro squashed any rumors that Atkins' job may be in jeopardy.
There won't be a change with Ross.
Atkins' job is safe for now, but he says he has to be better.
We've had goals to bring championships back to Canada, and that certainly remains. And I know that I need to take a step in order for us to do that, and I'm committed to that.
Ross needs to be better. I need to be better. Our entire baseball operations need to be better.
Not everyone is convinced Atkins deserves another chance.
How many years are you comfortable coming down here and saying Ross needs to be better when we're already into his 8th and 9th seasons? If you're doing this on a consistent basis, to me that means you need to make a change.
Atkins says he would like to keep his 2 biggest stars here as well. Both Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette are entering the final year of their contracts.
We are definitively committed to this core, and I've said this to Bo and Vladdy that they have done very powerful things already. Not enough to their standards, nor mine, and certainly not the fans. But what they've accomplished already is exceptional, and there's a lot of good baseball ahead of them, and I hope it's together.
Atkins would not say if he is currently in talks with either Guerrero Jr. or Bichette about a potential contract extension beyond next season. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
And Colette, yeah, I needed my jacket today, but we are expecting temperatures to climb back up a little bit again.
Yeah, they will be climbing back up. But yeah, you're right. We got a little bit of a reprieve, but they're just not seeing that in the desert southwest of the U.S. I want to show you, this is a snapshot from this afternoon of some of the readings, like Palm Springs at 43 and Phoenix at 42. But check this out. For this very, very new month of October, they've already hit all-time highs that they've never seen since they've been keeping records in Palm Springs in the month of October of 47, which, by the way, is 117 Fahrenheit, and Phoenix and Yuma up at 45. So, and that's so far. I want to show you those upper winds here, okay? The jet stream, the strong winds in the upper atmosphere, really a very zonal flow we're seeing here. And that's kind of where we're not getting a lot of changes over the next few days, a few ups and downs, but we're going to see more of a trough developing in the jet stream at the beginning of next week. And then we'll get some cooler air coming in that's going to stick around for a while. And I just mean a little bit cooler, kind of knocking us back closer to seasonal for a longer period of time. So for tomorrow morning, a little bit of fog possible. Other than that, we are talking about mostly sunny skies. And then this next frontal boundary comes through on Friday. A little bit of cloud cover and some passing showers are possible. Not a big deal, but behind that, we'll dip down with the temperature once again. For tonight, though, we will see some single digits. Oshawa down to 8, 9 for Hamilton, Toronto at 10, and Windsor a similar temperature there for your overnight lows. For us tomorrow afternoon, it's that 22. Any fog that develops, we should see that burning off pretty quickly. And the other thing that will help with that mixing of the atmosphere tomorrow morning is the winds are going to kick up a little bit. Pretty short in terms of the duration, a little bit stronger into cottage country, but that'll help mix to any fog that develops. So after a beautiful day on Thursday with that ridge of high pressure in place, there's that passing front on Friday, 20 degrees, Saturday 20, and then we are into teens for daytime highs after that.
Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.